Well, good to have you with us. Just gone 7 o'clock. It is the 1st of April. Goodbye, March. Hello, autumn. We'll check in with the weather a little bit later. It does seem hot around midday, but still very cold early on in the morning. We'll bring you the weather forecast later. Irma G on traffic for you in about 10 minutes' time. And also, we'll check in with Morena Motupi, looking after everything sports-wise. But first, it is our top story. It's the big focus for this morning. President Ramaphosa going to take the witness stand when the Human Rights Commission July unrest hearings resume this morning. Let's go back over to Thulasizwe Simelane and also Manqoba Mqunu, who are following that for us. The sun is rising, hopefully going to be putting a glare on the president, Thulasizwe, as the country awaits to hear what actually happened in his office when it comes to, and I love the way you phrased it earlier, I'll repeat it, who knew what and when in July last year, what was a spectacular failure in communications.
Yeah, and that word spectacular failure, Gareth, is warranted given what we now know from the work of the panel of experts led by Sandy Africa that looked into the July unrest. And these processes have been running parallel. The panel of experts investigation was commissioned by President Cyril Ramaphosa for his understanding of what exactly transpired. The Human Rights Commission, on the other hand, is undertaking its own work as a Chapter 9 institution. And my sense of it is that the Human Rights Commission work is a bit broader in that the number of people that they've called, and they've been able to actually call people and have them testify, whereas the panel of experts, did interviews with people here and there, but it wasn't as wide-ranging as the Human Rights Commission appears to be going in its investigation. So it all comes together to really complete the picture of why it is that despite the plethora of acronyms that we have, SANDF, SAPS, NatJoints, NICOC, but none of these acronyms stood up and was able to push back effectively and timelessly against the riots and looting and violence that was taking place, at least not until more than 340 people were dead. These are the questions that President Cyril Ramaphosa will have to answer, including questions that will be, I imagine, will be directly and directed at him to say, what did you know when, Mr. President, as these events were unfolding? Take a listen to what Ayanda Dlodlo, who was at the time the Minister of State Security, said when she testified, because she is adamant that in as much as many of us lament that there was a failure of intelligence, actually, in as far as at least the component of intelligence that reported to her, which is state security, the State Security Agency, they did generate a number of alerts that were warning that there's some movement, and Manqoba Mqunu will talk to that in a moment. But let's take a listen to Ayanda Dlodlo testifying a few months ago.
So all the products that were delivered to the NatJoints were delivered. Some of them were delivered to the president. I took personal responsibility for this. I stopped at some point because the director for the domestic branch had told me that he was briefing the president. SSA management and I, at some point during the riots, had asked to brief the president about things that we were picking up in KZN that sounded quite alarming, and felt that the President of the Republic should be appraised on what we were picking up. Unfortunately, in that time, the President was unable to meet either me or the SSA.
And so, Gareth, just picking up from that last point, Ayanda Dlodlo making the point that once the events were unfolding, there was a point where they would have wanted to meet with the president and appraise him on certain disturbing events that they were picking up. In those days, in those 8 days, there was a point at which she says she was then unable to, get an appointment and sit with the president and speak to the president. Just one of the many aspects that I do expect will come up in the conversation. Manqoba Mqunu into the conversation, and Manqoba, that's one of the aspects that we expect will be an area of focus. But from just reading that panel of experts report, there are other aspects that President Cyril Ramaphosa can potentially be asked about, including the failure to meet of the National Security Council.
Indeed, Thulas, and in fact, as you've alluded to this particular issue, one of the crucial questions that the President will be asked, of course, is what did he know about the unrest and when did he know it, and what was government's action following, the knowledge that was given to him. You've heard from the former State Security Minister saying that, in fact, she had provided intelligence to the President. She says that she went herself to the President. She would give those reports to the President, and she says that she had stopped at some time, and the director of the domestic branch of intelligence had been the one then who had taken that intelligence, those reports to the President. So it will be crucial to hear what the President knew and what action was taken by government to try and deal with this particular unrest. But also the report itself, Thulas, was quite damning in its findings. It found that the police were inept in their response. It found that there was poor coordination between the intelligence as well as police when it came to dealing with the unrest itself. But also it went a bit further about the politics of the ANC itself, saying that the politics, the factional battles within the ANC were also a source of instability in the country, and that was of great concern, and saying that they need to then identify where those those issues arise from and where this instability arises from. But also critically was the fact that the police didn't receive any intelligence, and that particular report saying that it doesn't understand how the police did not get any of this information. So these are some of the questions that the President will have to answer as to what really government's response was, and if we'll see any sort of accountability. Minister of Police Bheki Cele has said that he's not going to take any personal responsibility for this, and you have Anda Dlodlo saying that we did provide all the information, we did provide those reports, and really what she was saying is that for Minister Cele to actually think that she was actually going to give him directly the reports, he was dreaming in color. I think that's what she had said here during this commission. So we want to see whether there will be any sort of accountability, because that's what's been missing from the testimonies that have been hearing from the various ministers that have taken the stand here.
And ultimately, Mangoba, as I let you go, the responsibility will land on the desk of the President, because at the end of it, he is supposed to be coordinating the work, at least of the cabinet, and ensuring that policy directives are followed through, including those directives that have to do with safety and security, Gareth. So from that report, that damning report, the final conclusion that it makes is that the executive should take ultimate responsibility for all of those failures, the executive. And subsequent to its release, at the State of the Nation address, President Cyril Ramaphosa had this to say about that particular point, that says the cabinet, the executive, should take ultimate responsibility for this event that led to more than 340 South Africans dying, that led to damage to the tune of some 50 billion rand to our economy. SAHRC, as we speak, is still sitting with a number of claims for properties that were burnt and looted extensively. Take a listen to what the President said in his State of the Nation address about taking responsibility.
The report concludes that government's initial handling of the July 2021 events was inept, police operational planning was poor, there was poor coordination between the state security and intelligence services, and police are not always embedded in the communities that they serve. Now, the expert panel said that if violence has exposed anything, it was the poverty and inequality that is the root cause of the desperation of our people. The panel found that Cabinet must take overall responsibility for the events of July 2021. Now, this is a responsibility that we acknowledge and we also accept.
Accept and acknowledge the responsibility. Many wondering if we're going to hear the same from the president today, especially when you've highlighted, Thulasizwe, what Ayanda Dlodlo had to say, saying intelligence wasn't a failure. The intelligence was there. The issue was trying to get all the moving pieces to move at least in the right direction. Just before I let you go, Thulas, we know earlier we saw what I thought was a presidential motorcade. What time are we expecting the president to actually arrive? Do we know? And what time does the hearings get underway?
So anytime soon, Gareth, because the hearings do get underway at 9 a.m. So we do expect the president to start making his way. That motorcade you were seeing earlier, it was just the VIP protection unit of the SAPS just arriving and just, doing an early sweep before, everything starts unfolding. So it wasn't the president arriving that early. He is sure to have a long day if the previous questioning by the commissioners and the evidence leaders is anything to go by. I do expect that he will have to answer some pretty hard questions about some of what he has already acknowledged, including those failures that the panel of experts found to have been at play in the events of July last year. So we do expect the president to make his way anytime soon. The start is scheduled for 9 a.m.
And of course, we'll have it live here on eNCA and also streaming on eNCA.com. Back to you as soon as we see the president, Thulasizwe Simelane, for us as the president gets ready to take the stand so the country can hear his views, his take, his opinion, his thoughts on what actually happened in July of last year. There's a lot of questions to be asked. I'm actually going to be speaking to Kanye Magobane, political analyst, about that in just a couple of moments from now to get Kanye's thoughts on what we should be hearing from the president today.